Good evening. Welcome to the Costa Mesa Planning Commission meeting for Monday, August 23rd, 2021. I call the meeting to order and ask Commissioner Toller to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Commissioner Toller. Julie, roll call, please. Here.
Here.
Commissioner Arith.
Present.
Please note that Commissioner Arith is present via Zoom. Commissioner Russell.
Here.
And Commissioner Toller.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Julie. We have no announcements or presentations on the agenda tonight. That brings us to public comments. Public comments are for opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission on matters that are not on this evening's agenda but are within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction. Julie, do we have any public comments tonight?
It doesn't look like anybody on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any member of the public wish to speak during public comment tonight? Again, this is matters that are not on the agenda for this evening but are within our jurisdiction. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment. It brings us to Planning Commissioner comments, and we'll begin tonight with Commissioner Arith.
Thank you, Chair Jericho. I have no comments this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Toller.
Thank you, Chair Jericho. I just have a couple of quick comments. I was sorry to see Commissioner Tourget leave this dais. I think she was a fantastic representative of the city up here. She, along with Commissioner Colbert, brought a very good balance to this commission that I think we're going to lack now. And I really appreciated her perspective, Commissioner Colbert's perspective. I think the housing affordability crisis in California and our city has something to do with that. So I hope that we kind of see these droppings off of our dais as something urgent, something to take to heart. I'm glad that we're doing the housing element. I think that we're doing a good job with that. I know that it was just, the draft was just released for public review. I look forward to especially the implementation of that. And I look forward to being part of the process because we're going to have to change some zoning to implement those new policy directions. And I know a lot of people are nervous and even upset about the high RENA allocation, the number of units that we've been tasked with planning for in this city. And I think about this sort of thing a lot. And I think there's two very fundamental reasons that people are afraid of new housing. One is that we've lost all confidence that buildings can improve a place. We're used to buildings being ugly when they go up, and I think that's understandable. The other assumption is that more people means more cars, which means more traffic and more parking problems, which nobody likes. Both reasons that people oppose housing, I think, are totally understandable, but I think they're both resolvable fairly easily too. Codes can be written to ensure that buildings look well, they feel good, they address public space well and engage with that public space well. There are design review processes. There are ways to do that well. I hope that we can arrange our codes and processes in such a way that we are ensuring that new development comes in well. And more people doesn't have to mean more cars. Cities existed for a long time before cars. A lot of cities are changing the way they arrange their public spaces. We can do the same, and we need to do the same if we're going to grow well. The second thing related to that, I just wanted to give a public shout out to the Public Services Department, concert in the park was a huge success. And if you guys didn't know or weren't able to make it, there was a pop-up protected bike lane along Placentia all the way from Adams to Victoria. It was wide enough so that you could ride side by side with people. This was really a first in the city. In making this thing, we're leading the way for Orange County. It was a really cool thing. The difference between riding in alongside 40-mile-an-hour traffic with a little white stripe and some barriers is huge. I rode from the east side with my family, with my wife and 2 little kids, and I was nervous at first, but they were into it. And that piece between Victoria and the event, that's the deal breaker piece that would have made us change our mind and say, no, let's just drive instead. Let's all get in the car and deal with the parking issues. But because there was some support on that, that kind of sketchy part of the street there from a biker's perspective, we were able to ride our bikes. And you know what? It opened our eyes. It wasn't that bad. It was about 20 minutes. The weather's fine, no hills. That should be easy. We should make, as a city, we shouldn't be making those sorts of options more available for more people. And so I just want to applaud public services, because that wasn't something that they needed to do. But they did that, and I think it was a success, and I think it was a precedent. And I hope to see much more of that sort of thing in Costa Mesa. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Russell.
I don't have any comments tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Vice Chair Zick.
A couple of comments, thank you. I find myself in complete agreement with Commissioner Toller on, I think, every comment you made. Certainly the loss of Commissioner Colbert and Commissioner Torje was certainly a loss from the standpoint of their professional expertise and what they brought here. That said, what Commissioner Toller brings to the commission, I'm very excited about, because they're fresh, new ideas. And the way you put them forward are extremely constructive, and I like that. My other comment is maybe more of a suggestion, and I'm not looking for staff to respond to it today, but a thought has occurred to me in the past. We see a lot of applications, approve a lot of applications for CUPs and MCUPs. And with almost everything that we approve, there are conditions of approval that go along with it. Some of them are fairly simple, straightforward, maybe mundane. Some are rather intricate, involved, time sensitive, use sensitive, to the point where adjacent property owners at some point might have an interest in understanding whether or not a property owner has the right to do what it is that they're doing under those conditions of approval. And I don't know that we have an easy way for residents to tap into the conditions of approval for CUPs and MCUPs that the city has approved. And if there was a way on the website to have an address searchable database for something like that, I don't exactly have the solution, but to me the problem that I see is it's difficult to understand what conditions of approval might exist on property uses without doing a whole lot of research and asking a whole lot of questions. And I think there's an easier way. So that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have no comments this evening. And we have, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. We have no items on the consent calendar. So we'll go to public hearings. And Julie, I will ask that you read public hearing item number 1, title into the record, please.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 21-06 for a conditional use permit for the service and repair of motor vehicles within 200 feet of residentially zoned property at 261 through 263 Briggs Avenue. Please note that we have received a total of 2 public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any ex parte communications to report? Okay, Commissioner Areth, any communications?
No communication, sir, but I do still have to recuse myself from this item.
I understand that. Thank you. So we'll give you a moment if we could put him in the waiting room, Julie, on Zoom. Let me know when that's done, and then we'll begin. Okay, thank you, Julie. Mr. Yeager, staff report.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Chris Yeager, Assistant Planner. Tonight I'm presenting the conditional use permit for Ribbian, located at 261 to 263 Briggs Avenue. The site location is located on Briggs Avenue, midway between Pullman and Red Hill. It is on the south side of Briggs. And the property is zoned Industrial Park MP and has a general plan land use designation of Industrial Park. The zoning district, it is intended for a variety of industrial and compatible offices in a campus-like setting, and the property is surrounded by similar MP zone properties. This is a request for a conditional use permit to allow for service and repair of motor vehicles within 200 feet of a residential zone. Repair services for vehicles, boats, and motorcycles within 200 feet of a residential zone are required to obtain a CUP per the municipal code. If it was outside of the 200-foot buffer, it would be a permitted use. The image below, or the image to the right here, it does show the 200-foot buffer around the Baker Block apartments, which are zoned planned development residential high density. And with that small blue triangle as the only part of the subject property within the 200-foot buffer. The application also proposes to allow for 24/7 operation for minor services such as wheel alignment, hardware replacement, software program updates. And this location would also act as a pre-inspection / delivery center, which will ensure that custom-made vehicles are fully inspected before owners receive them. All activities would take place within the existing buildings with the exception of outdoor vehicle storage, and any vehicles that require extensive repairs would be towed off-site to an authorized body repair business. The property features 3 industrial condominiums with a shared parking lot. The application proposes to remove the interior wall separating the 2 units, and other proposed improvements include constructing a customer lounge, an office area, restrooms, and employee break rooms. And the combined warehouse space would serve as the indoor servicing area to include vehicle lifts, parts, tools, and technology center, and an indoor drive-through car wash bay. The exterior modification for this facility include the installation of 5 level 3 EV chargers and 3 level 2 chargers on the west side of the building, and an installation of a new transformer at the rear. The property does feature, or it features a parking lot which is shared with 265 Briggs, and extra parking spaces that are not required by code and are screened from the public right-of-way may be used for vehicle storage. In this case, Ribbian would be credited with 11 spaces for storage. As mentioned briefly, the property is located within 200 feet of a residential zone, which would typically not allow for auto repair uses from the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. With that being said, the portion of the property that is within that buffer is relatively small, 0.5% of the actual property. The Baker Block property line to the northern corner of the subject building is approximately 323 feet, and the rear corner is 409 feet, and the property line to the closest roll-up doors straight line is 441 feet. The image to the left of the screen does show the rear of the proposed location, and to the left and behind the location you can see the corner of the Baker Block buildings. So due to the distance and operating characteristics, the applications are requesting that as a part of the conditional use permit that the Planning Commission allow for the use to operate 24/7. Ribbian has indicated that the overnight hours are critical to its operation due to certain activities like over-the-air software updates, which are scheduled to be completed overnight. They've also agreed to allow overnight, or they've also agreed to only allow overnight work when work is taking place inside with all of the doors being closed and when noise cannot be heard at the property line. In addition, vehicle deliveries are proposed to occur after hours, but they would cease at 10 p.m. as conditioned. A variety of conditions have been added to the project to ensure that the use does not negatively impact the neighborhood. Condition number 6 requires that work only be permitted inside the building with doors closed from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and that the noise not be audible outside the property. Condition number 7, that no backup alarms can occur from delivery vehicles from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and that no deliveries occur after 10 p.m. Condition 8, that delivery vehicles unload at the rear as far east as possible, as far from Baker Block as can be. Condition 15 has that the CC&Rs be modified to allow the combination of units. And condition 16, which would allow for outdoor storage of vehicles limited to 11 excess parking spaces, and that no on-street storage or employee parking take place on the streets. The complete list of findings were available in the report and resolution, but essentially as conditioned, the project would be compatible and harmonious with the general neighborhood, would have little or no impacts on residential properties, and the project is required to meet all applicable building and fire codes, so it would not be detrimental to public health or safety. And the project would be compatible with the zoning code and general plan. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA per 15301, Class 1 existing facilities, and to approve the planning application subject to the conditions of approval. So I can make myself available to questions. The applicant, Don Lanham, is also available on Zoom, and we also have representatives in the auditorium tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yeager. Commissioner, are there any questions of staff? Seeing none. Commissioner Russell, Vice Chair Zick, go ahead.
Thank you. Just 3 questions. Mr. Yeager, just a little bit down the street on Pullman, it appears that there is a Tesla business. Does that business have a similar use restriction since they're in the 200-foot buffer?
I'm not entirely sure of their operating characteristics, but I believe that they are not doing overnight hours. If Ms. Lee can verify.
Yeah, I have to look up their specific operating characteristics as well as any conditions that may have been applied, but it's not typical for these types of conditions to be applied.
Okay. And my second question with regard to the restriction within this 200-foot buffer. So there's the restriction on the service and repair of motor vehicles. Are there any other restrictions on uses within the 200-foot buffer?
So all operations would be conducted within an enclosed building if it's within 200 feet. All areas or structures in which operations are conducted should be located in a way to minimize any annoyance or detriment to other surrounding properties. The 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. operation is permitted, and that no damaged or inoperable vehicles be stored on site for other purposes other than repair.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, the condition of approval 16 that you referenced that said no employee parking shall take place on public streets. Is that specific to this application or is that standard verbiage for most CUPs?
That is specific to this application.
And what was the reasoning for that?
And that was added to the conditions in response to the comments provided from the neighboring businesses.
Okay, so other businesses in the area and specifically within the 200-foot buffer do not have a restriction on employee parking?
Not to my knowledge, but I could do some research for you.
Okay, thank you.
I can
Thank you,
add a
Mr.
bit to that, Vice Chair Hsip. Just in general, it is always expected, because we have minimum parking requirements for businesses, that business employees and customers park primarily in the parking lots that are, that represent that required parking. But there is no specific law that says that business customers, for example, can't use on-street parking. In general, it's an expectation based on minimum parking requirements, but no law or condition of approval is typical.
Okay, except for this one with regard to the employee parking because of the complaint that was received.
Correct, and in this particular case as well, the use request has to do with auto repair and specifically vehicle storage. And so I think in those cases, it's important to call out the difference between allowing for vehicle storage on street, which is really a use that belongs on the property. So that was the distinction here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have, most of my questions are for the applicant, but I have a couple for staff. On the staff report, page 3, first paragraph under tenant improvements, there's discussion or there's a mention, and you referenced it in your presentation, of an indoor drive-through car wash bay. Are there any provisions anywhere in our code, particularly under code requirements for building codes, under code requirements for number 9 rather, relative to water quality management plan, any need for them to contact Regional Water Quality Control Board, any kind of water quality management plan that we should be aware of that is not mentioned?
So if the permit was required to have a water quality management plan, that would be part of the tenant improvements. But perhaps Sung, if he has any insight on when that would be required, he could.
Typically for a water quality management plan, Mr. Chairman, it's any kind of site for new developments, usually like over 1 acre in size. And typically that triggers the need for a water quality management plan.
Okay, I just didn't know what, maybe they could explain to me how they handle water and how they capture it and that kind of thing, so I'll ask them, okay. Then, question number 2, and this I'll also ask for the applicant, but you may know, do they plan on storing batteries on site? And if so, has our fire marshal looked at this plan and understand what the storage plan is for things like batteries if they are going to be stored?
So I'll let the applicant describe any battery storage on site. However, as part of the review here, the fire department has chimed in and they didn't have any issues with what was proposed.
Perfect, thank you. Then I want to go to handwritten page 7 on the staff report in conditions of approval, condition of approval number 9, where it stipulates that this conditional use permit shall expire upon discontinuance of the activity authorized hereby for a period of 120 days or more. In other words, if the use is inactive over a 180-day period. Why are we putting that in there? I mean, I've seen that condition in a couple of other applications over the years, but I'm kind of curious as to why that we're putting that in here.
So this is a standard condition which is applied to conditional use permits, and the thought behind it is that if there was a use that went inactive and another future use wanted to come in, say a year or so later, we could review that future use as a new conditional use permit to ensure that they are going to be having the same impacts on the area.
Okay, that's helpful for me. Helpful to me, rather. Okay, I have no additional questions. I will open the public hearing and ask Julie if Mr. Lamb is available. Okay, Mr. Lamb, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
I can, excellent. Have you read the staff report, sir, and the conditions of approval? Are you in agreement?
Yes, I have, and the applicant is in full agreement with all of the conditions of approval. Thank you.
Excellent. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, good evening, Chair. Chair and members of the commission. This is Don Lamb. I apologize for not being present tonight. I was at your last meeting. I enjoyed the great presentation by the chair of the commission and the public, and unfortunately we couldn't have the hearing, but tonight I am in Central California, but I wouldn't miss this for anything, so thank you. And again, wish to thank you for your time and energy placed in this as volunteers to the community. We always wish to thank any commissioner who takes that time and interest in a betterment of Costa Mesa. And lastly, to thank the staff for their extraordinary customer service. Staff just always does a great job. And in this application, they were very thorough. They've discussed every condition with us. We're well aware of all of the circumstances in the area, so we're very pleased and ready to move forward. Concerning Ribbian Automotive, Ribbian was a new name to me as well when they came to us for representation. Ribbian Automotive is new in the electric vehicle world. We've all heard of Tesla and some of the other General Motors products and the Ford products as well. But when we started exploring the Ribbian product, we thought this is really exciting. They have a SUV, a van, and a pickup truck. The vehicles aren't out in production sales at this point in time, so there has been somewhat of a secrecy, you might say, but they have been featured most recently in Orange County Business Journal, and it is coming. Ribbian is very well capitalized, as the articles in the Business Journal presented. They have partnerships with Amazon. Amazon's already ordered 100,000 of their delivery vans. And there are only, there's only one service center in Orange County. This would be the second and the primary one in Orange County. So the infrastructure is moving ahead of the actual production and rollout of the vehicles. So when we heard this, we thought Costa Mesa is a great location. They were very pleased to all of your past decisions. They were pleased in what they saw in the Audi application. So Ribbian said they wanted to come to Costa Mesa. This is the site they picked, and we're very happy that you were able to capture them. Your economic development program is very successful in Costa Mesa. It shows the community that you're open to new ideas, different ways of looking at the codes. And in this one tonight, that's what we're looking for. The vehicle business is a service, it's an automotive service business, and we recognize that, but not like your businesses you would see over on Logan Street or any others where you have automotive exhaust and noise and air hammers and air jacks. This is mainly a technology-driven business. Yes, it has vehicle hoists, but everything is done indoors in a very clean, pristine environment. The vehicles themselves do require extensive service for computer programming and technology upgrades and or repairs. So we recognize the code says that if this property was not within 200 feet of the Baker Block property, that it would have been a permitted use, the business could open, and that would be that. Since it has the very tip of the property within 200 feet, yes, you have that jurisdiction over saying you cannot have service of vehicles from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But in this case, we really don't look at this as an equivalent type of automotive service business. You know, those old days when the condition was put into effect really occurred from the car dealerships over on Harbor Boulevard, and the ones in particular like Neighbors Cadillac that backed up to homes along Princeton, where the back service bays, air compressors, and air hammers were really bothering the neighbors. That's when this law was put into effect. As far as its application in this case, we're proposing that all the work be done at nighttime from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. with the doors closed. There are no outdoor air compressors. The car wash is indoors. And to answer your question about the car wash, it would comply with all the building code requirements. And these indoor car washes are about 90% all recirculated and filtered water. Very little is sent down the sewer system. And it really doesn't apply to the water quality management plans that collect all the outside or exterior water. This would be separately into the sewer system if and when they actually dispose of some of the tainted or dirty water. The zoning in particular, as we mentioned, Baker Block, and Baker Block apartments is probably the closest residential to John Wayne Airport. It's a 5-story building. On the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors, you're above the roof line of the industrial, and you can see the runway. They have a direct exposure to jet departures from John Wayne. So all of the industrial park, which was developed over there by the Irvine Company in the early days as the Irvine Industrial Complex, and deed restricted to industrial, those properties are within the 65 CNEL noise contour area, which is the high noise impact zone. And according to the airport land use plans, you cannot build residential in a 65 CNEL area. Baker Block happened to be that one little glitch of property next to the 55 freeway that's in the 60 CNEL. So it was built, but it has significant noise mitigation built into that building in the noise attenuating windows, doors, sound wall. I think that during the daytime or evening, there's no one in Baker Block Apartments could ever hear anything going on at the Ribbian Automotive area, part of the property, because Baker Block abuts the 55 freeway. It has noise departure and landings up till 10 p.m. So even from 10 to 7 in the morning, we'd still believe no one will hear anything from the Ribbian complex. We do not believe it would be anything intrusive to residents in the area. And we're more than happy to accept all the conditions of approval that say if there's ever a complaint or ever a concern, that Ribbian would be one to step up and do something about that and address that immediately. We do feel that this business is perfect for Costa Mesa. It is a technology use that we think fits in the particular area. One answer or two that we can give you as far as some of the questions from the commission. Just very quickly, I think Chair DeArco, besides addressing the car wash, you wanted to know about the battery storage. Battery storage will not occur on site. The lithium batteries that are placed in the car usually are ordered, they're delivered, drop shipped, and then installed in the car. So there isn't any massive storage of lead acid batteries or any other types of toxic chemicals in this property. And the fire department will as well have full inspections every 6 months that they do, and be certain that everything in this building operates in accordance with it. It'll be fire sprinklered. It'll have fire suppression alarm systems. So a very safe, very clean particular building. The one condition I think that Chairman Zick had mentioned, asking about parking on the streets. We understand your concerns. There's a significant amount of parking occurring all along Pullman and the 55 freeway. And there is some around onto Briggs. It's not really a concern of staff. I'm sorry, it's not a concern of the applicant that parking be prohibited by this applicant. They have more than enough parking on site. If a customer happens to come and park on Briggs, that would be an uncontrolled situation. But this applicant fully accepts the condition of approval that says no storing, parking of vehicles or employees on Briggs Street. We applaud you for trying to keep those streets a little more uncongested, because they are becoming quite full with the competing neighboring business around the corner. So with that, we'd just like to conclude and say I'm available to answer your questions, any and all commissioners. We're very pleased that Ribbian selected Costa Mesa. We're very pleased to represent them tonight. And we hope that we can gain your support, and big announcement that Ribbian's going to open in Costa Mesa, and we can go forward from here. So thank you very much. And I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamb. Thank you. You answered my questions. I will not have any. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant? Okay, I don't see any, so I'll open public comment on this item. Any member in the chambers tonight wish to speak to this item, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one. Julie, is there anyone on Zoom or on the telephone wish to speak to this item?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will close public comment. I'm assuming there's no questions. Mr. Lamb, I trust that you've given your presentation, so I will also close the public hearing. And I'm going to make a motion to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1 existing facility, and approve planning application 21-06, subject to the findings in Exhibit A and the conditions of approval in Exhibit B. Is there a second? Okay, I made the motion, and Vice Chair Zick has seconded the motion. Any comments on the motion? Vice Chair Zick.
Several comments, thank you. I'm excited to see this applicant come to the city of Costa Mesa. We have an extensive automotive business environment in the city, from new car sales to repair to enhancement, and I think this just fits in with what we have in the city already. I'm also very happy to see industrial land used for industry. Helps our economic development, as Mr. Lamb pointed out, which is critical to the city. I'm also pleased to see the city add this condition of approval related to employee parking on the applicant's property. I don't think we want to be in the business of providing free parking on our streets for businesses. I think they need to be self-sufficient. I'm pleased that the applicant is willing to accept this condition, and I wouldn't mind seeing this come up more often. Lastly, this restriction on use, and again, the applicant has no problem with it, and I'm happy about that. But I'm a little bit concerned about the potential, particularly as we're planning additional housing in the city in response to the RENA. And that is the unintended consequence on existing land use rights by essentially inserting or encroaching residential into non-residentially zoned land. So I think we need to keep that in mind in our planning. I'm sure somebody is, but in particular with this application, it caught my attention. And again, I'm glad the applicant is not concerned about it, but I think other property owners in industrial land use areas might have concerns in the future. So we just have to keep an eye on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Toller, did you have comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay, thank you. I'll just quickly concur with the Vice Chair, and it's good to see, I think, sustainable energy industries starting to come to Costa Mesa, and I think hopefully that will be a good indication or a good indicator to other businesses in the green energy industry to look at the city as a place to do business. So I'm happy to welcome Ribbian and to support the motion since I made it. And then we'll go ahead and ask Julie to do a roll call vote.
Chair Jericho,
Aye.
Vice Chair Zick,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Toller.
Aye.
That motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Areth recusing himself.
Okay, and that decision is final within 7 days unless appealed to the City Council. And then Julie, if we can have Commissioner Areth brought back in. Are we good to go? Are you with us, Commissioner Areth?
Yes, Chair, I am. Thank you.
Excellent. Julie, public hearing item number 2, please read the title.
Public hearing item number 2, zoning application 20-14 for a minor conditional use permit to allow an individual and group counseling use in the general industrial MG zone and to deviate from parking requirements located at 1640 Superior Avenue. Please note that we have not received any public comments on this item. This is a call to report any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any communications report? Seeing none on the dais, Commissioner Arith, any communications?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, Mr. Arias, staff report, please.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Justin Arias, Associate Planner. As Julie described, the item before you is zoning application 20-14, a request for a minor conditional use permit to deviate from parking requirements for an individual and group counseling use. The project site is located on the corner of Superior Avenue and Commercial Way, which is a private street. The property is approximately 27,000 square feet in size with an existing 8,155 square foot building. The property is zoned MG, General Industrial, with a general plan land use designation of light industrial. Surrounding properties are also industrially zoned and contain primarily commercial and industrial uses. This slide provides the site plan for the project site. The project site has an existing 18 parking spaces. The use would occupy the entire property. The submitted floor plans include staff offices and workspaces, individual counseling rooms, a group counseling room, group exercise area, as well as storage areas. As described in the applicant letter, the use would involve individual and group counseling, as well as group fitness classes for clients only. The project also includes the consolidation of off-site offices and storage to this site. The proposed hours of operation of the business are Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The use also does not allow walk-up clients and does not allow clients to drive their personal vehicles to the site. Generally, the use would operate with group fitness and exercise classes occurring in the morning, with these classes limited to a maximum of 30 clients. Individual and group counseling sessions would occur in the late mornings throughout the rest of the day, with each group counseling session limited to 10 clients each, and at most 3 concurrent group sessions would occur with a maximum of 30 clients. The site is considered legal non-conforming as it relates to parking requirements in the industrial zone. 24 spaces are required, 18 spaces exist. As proposed, the use would operate without utilizing more than 10 spaces, 7 spaces for staff vehicles and 3 for the passenger vans. Furthermore, conditions of approval have been proposed to ensure the use operates as proposed, including conditions of approval related to the hours of operation and maximum number of clients for the proposed use, fitness classes not being open to the public, the areas permitted for counseling, the requirement that all participants be brought to and from the site via shuttle vans, and the use being conducted under roof. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA and approve zoning application 20-14, subject to conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Arias. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Commissioner Toller.
Thank you. Minor conditional use permit is required because of the parking and because of the use, as I understand it. And the use is both office and trade / vocational. I tried to get some clues within the required findings as to why that is, but I couldn't find, I couldn't figure it out. Is there any light you could shed on that, on why because normally it's the other way around, right? We're protecting the more traditionally nuisance, the nuisance seems flipped, right? We're protecting the other industrial properties from an office use. So I wonder if there's some backstory or a reason for the requirement for MCUP.
So just a little bit of history. In this particular case, I think the MCUP is required for a few reasons. The first is because, generally speaking, industrial zones that we want to see used for industrial purposes. So we'd like to see if there are offices that are proposed and approved in the industrial zone, that they be either related or at least compatible with the surrounding industrial uses from an impact perspective. The other reason for specifically individual and group counseling is more related to parking requirements and specifically the gathering of groups on a site that wasn't necessarily planned for that originally. It was planned for a lower key industrial use. So those are the two reasons.
Okay. As far as parking, could they ask for as much deviation as they could, or is there a limit to how much deviation they could ask for in terms of minimum parking requirements?
Under this section of the code that specifically is a deviation from parking requirements based on operating characteristics, there isn't a maximum. The intention is for it to be tied to the operation. So it's different in that way than a variance or some other use would be.
Okay, last question. God forbid there's a parking problem in 6 months. What kind of leverage do we have in terms of revoking the CUP? What would that look like?
So in this particular case, we feel we've crafted some very specific conditions of approval, and specifically the application discusses no individual customers being served as walk-ups, for example, and specifically that shuttle vans in this particular case are being used in their entirety to move customers to the site. So when those conditions of approval are not complied with, there's always the option, when there are complaints, for staff to forward the application to the Planning Commission for revocation.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. I have a quick question. With this MCUP or MCUPs in general, are they specific to the applicant, or do they run with the property?
The approval would run with the property.
Okay. That's the only question I had. I'm not seeing any other questions. Commissioner Arith, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair DeArcol. I do have a couple questions. I'm looking at, let's start with Exhibit B. Number 7, it says the businesses shall be conducted at all times in a manner that will allow the quiet enjoyment of the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant and or business owner shall institute whatever security and operational measures are necessary to comply with this requirement. So can staff tell us a little bit more about what these measures are and what complying will look like essentially?
I can answer that, Commissioner Arith. This condition is a standard condition of approval anytime that we have a use that's proposed in an industrial zone, or it's also typical in commercial zones as well. Essentially, the intent is that the condition is for the business to operate as a good neighbor. This is a condition that we use for code enforcement purposes when there's an ongoing and extended activity at the site that seems to be causing a disruption in the neighborhood. So it is a very broad condition, but we do use it for enforcement purposes for disruptions.
My apologies. Are cameras planned for being installed on site?
Not that I'm aware of, but that could be asked to the applicant.
Okay. And let's see here. For total number of people on site, I'm looking at the supplemental information, the addenda that were, let's see here, is this page 12 and page 13. I'm comparing the schedules in terms of the session schedules, and it looks like some of the numbers are off. If my math is right. So if we're looking at number 13, looks like there's approximately 40 people on site from noon until 1, but then you look on the Monday schedule at noon to 1. It seems like there might be several additional people on site.
Yes, I would clarify with the applicant, but I believe when the client and staff schedule matrix was generated, the anticipation for the clients for the group was a maximum of 8 at the time. So that's what the 24 kind of accounts for. But they have proposed with the maximum cap of 10 clients for those group sessions.
Okay, so if I'm looking at, if we're talking parking requirements here, and I'm looking at page, let's say 15, from the noon to 1 hour, just adding it up to be 40 people on site, does that augment the parking requirements further?
So the majority of those clients that are participating in the group counseling would have been transported via the shuttle vans. So the only parking demand would be from the staff.
Okay. And do we know if I see that the applicant had several letters from some of the local businesses in the area. Did the applicant reach out at all to, let's see, this is pretty much an industrial zone, but there is a nearby residential area, is that correct?
There are a few of the live work residential developments that are around the area.
Okay. Do we know if the applicant reached out to any of those residential areas?
I'm not aware, but I would verify with the applicant.
Okay. And I think that's all for now. I guess maybe this would be one additional question to Ms. Lee or other staff. Treehouse has been operating in Costa Mesa for a while, is that correct?
Yes, their offices have been located in the city.
Okay. Do we have, how could I put it? Any additional information about their business operations from their start until now? Have they essentially, have there been any complaints in the past?
Their operation in Costa Mesa has been related to their administrative office, and there have not been complaints in the past regarding that operation.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I think that's all for now.
Okay. I will then open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward to one of the two podiums. Let us know who you are, and I would ask you if you have read the staff report and the conditions of approval and if you are in agreement with them.
Yes, I have read the conditions of approval and I agree with all of them.
Okay, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Justin, thank you for your work on the presentation. It's been a real pleasure to work with you. I guess to start out, to introduce myself, my name is Justin McMillan. I am the CEO and founder of Treehouse Recovery. We're a veteran-owned and operated substance abuse treatment center. We specialize in treating vets, athletes, and high performers who struggle with addiction. I think it's notable that we have an uncommon level of success in successfully treating opiate-addicted clients. And when I mean uncommon, I mean in comparison to anyone else in our field. We also are extremely successful in treating post-traumatic stress. Let's see. So out of respect to our mission at Treehouse and to the gravity of this meeting, I think it'd be best for me just to kind of give an overview of what we do, and then of course afterwards I can answer any questions that you may have. So really what we do can be broken down into really 3 words, and they're really serious to us, everyone at Treehouse, and that's as simple as we save lives. And every single person at Treehouse wakes up every day with this in mind and has been doing so in this community for the last 8 years. We take it very seriously and we're very good at what we do. In trying to think about how to best explain what we do, I came up with an idea, and I think that it's probably the simplest way to provide a clear picture of our work. And so what I've done is I've invited a staff member here tonight who's also a graduate of our program and a U.S. military veteran. And he's going to share a little bit of his story with you as in lieu of a presentation. And I think through that, you'll get an understanding of what it is that we do, why we do it, and why it's so important. So I'd like to introduce you to retired Marine Corps Sergeant Brandon Fender.
Okay. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to come speak to you this evening. My name is Brandon Fender. I am a retired Marine who served 13 years in the United States Marine Corps. I deployed multiple times to Iraq and Afghanistan in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, as well as Operation Enduring Freedom. In 2010, I was wounded, which led to me having 21 surgeries and the loss of vision in one of my eyes. Throughout my many surgeries, I developed an opioid addiction that prevented me from being able to live a healthy life. I attended numerous PTSD and substance abuse programs where I was unable to regain control of the man I once knew. When arriving at Treehouse Recovery 2 years ago, I was a man that was mentally, physically, and emotionally broken and had thoughts about taking my own life. I was dealing with isolation and depression. I was someone that had a lot of shame and guilt about my past. For years, I felt like I didn't deserve to live a happy life because my brothers had given their lives while I made it home. I masked all my emotional and physical pain with substances, which left me detached from reality. While attending Treehouse Recovery, I learned healthy ways to deal with my post-traumatic stress and address the underlying issues that contributed to my addiction. Treehouse taught me to treat every aspect of my life, the biological, the psychological, and the social aspect. This is something that helped me tremendously. I was given in-depth knowledge on the disease of addiction, as well as how to heal my body on a physical and chemical level through healthy physical activity with friends. I regained that team aspect of having brothers around me that cared and loved me, something I'd been missing since retiring. I learned ways to communicate and build healthy relationships again. In the physical aspect, I went from someone that could hardly walk to now biking 50 miles every week, slowly building my body back up and working with a team, which was helping me heal my brain. Today, I'm a man of integrity and does not let my struggles from my past define who I am. I'm a loving father to a 14-week-old daughter and a caring boyfriend. I work as a physical empowerment counselor at Treehouse Recovery and help veterans dealing with the same issues as I did regain control of their life. Treehouse Recovery is a community of men that you want in this city. We help veterans find their purpose and rebuild their lives to become strong men that are capable of doing extraordinary things. Treehouse Recovery saved my life, and every day we strive to help others just like me to live beyond sobriety. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. If you may proceed if you still have.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, the only other thing I have to say is that Brandon is just one of over 1,000 stories like his that we have. And as I said, we treat veterans, athletes, and high performers. And I'm prepared to answer any questions about our programming, but obviously more importantly, answer any questions about this proposed use.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant? I don't see any. Commissioner Arith, any questions of the applicant?
Thank you, Chair D'Ericle. I do. Just a few questions. For the applicant, are medications administered on site?
No.
You're not. Okay. Do you have any other, do you have any recovery homes that are operating in the city of Costa Mesa
No.
under Treehouse? No. Okay. And I think that's about it for right now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. You can have a seat. I'm going to open the public hearing to public comment. There's nobody in the chambers tonight, so there won't be any public comment from chambers. Julie, any members of the public on Zoom or by telephone who wish to comment?
Nodder, you may provide your public comment.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Dr. Nader McHale, I actually live over at level 1 community, which are the Live Works that was alluded to earlier. There's 60 units of residents there. Just to answer the question about whether or not we were approached, we were not, which is okay. It just would have been, as we were talking about, maybe neighborly. However, the parking, I think, is the main issue. Of course, nobody doubts the need to treat our vets. I had the privilege of working at the Loma Linda VA and trying to contribute there. These outpatient facilities absolutely serve a purpose, and they actually need to be more, and there need to be larger ones. The only concern as one of the residents is that parking. Treehouse was coming in with, unfortunately, a deficit of that 18 to the 24, which are required. So there's already 6 less spots. And I understand that's what this use is about. Beyond the staff, the patients or the clients, although they're not, driving themselves, there are shuttles, there would still be a need for 3 or 4, I'm assuming, of these larger shuttles if there are groups of 40 attending. And also there may be, I'm assuming, family members or friends that would be able to help these vets as well. So there's parking there, although it may be just dropping off and picking up. But I can speak to the issues we're having less than a quarter mile away on Industrial, where SOS, their employees are using the roughly 8 parking spots on Industrial for their benefit exclusively, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. until about 5 p.m. The same for the frontage road, which abuts level 1. That is also less than a quarter mile away. We are the parallel street to Commercial Way, where Treehouse is. We also have Pillars Recovery, which is on that frontage road. They are using that frontage road, which runs perpendicular to Industrial, which is also creating parking issues. The Exercise Self-Made gym further down on Industrial, their clients use our street, along, of course, with all the, the commercial spaces are actually very good neighbors. They try to confine their needs for parking to their properties, which we're grateful for. But I just wanted to voice that concern if regarding the parking. Whatever can be done to help mitigate that. The Volkswagen that is on the other parallel street to Commercial, they are using that entire street to store their VW vans.
Sir, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll close public comment and see if there's any final questions. Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question for staff. Did the city send out notifications to all property owners within 500 feet of this applicant's address?
Yes, we did the 500-foot postcard notice, the on-site posting, as well as the ad in the newspaper.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay. Don't see any other questions from the commissioners. Gentlemen, do you have any final comments you wish to provide before I close the public hearing? Oops, I'm sorry. I've got to turn your microphone on. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry about that.
No, that's my fault.
A comment in regard to the gentleman that was on the Zoom call there. We did contact the neighbors that were kind of in the immediate adjacent properties. There are a lot of condos over there, and it was a little daunting just to think of how many and who to even, so I just want to apologize for that, and I'm glad, and I appreciate him sharing his thoughts, and I welcome collaboration. So I'm easily accessible. So that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So I will go ahead then and close the public hearing. Well, I've got one more question, actually. No, actually, I don't. I'll close the public hearing and bring the matter up to the dais and see if there is a motion on the floor. And I see Commissioner Zick. And Commissioner, could you state your motion?
I recommend that we find the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, per CEQA guidelines, section 15301, class 1, existing facilities, and approve this zoning application 20-14, subject to conditions of approval.
Okay, I'm gonna, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion by Vice Chair Zick, seconded by Commissioner Russell. I'm going to ask the maker of the motion if he'd be willing to include in conditions of approval, same condition we had in the previous item, condition 9, relative to the revocation of the MCUP should the use discontinue for a period of 180 days or more.
Absolutely, and I'd love to see that as a standard condition of approval.
Okay, is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with the addition to the conditions of approval. Any comments on the motion? Vice Chair Zick.
I think we're fortunate in one respect with this applicant and their unique operating requirements relative to parking, such that they can take advantage of a property that is woefully underparked. Existing non-conforming, a requirement for 24 spaces, only 18 exist. And with this use, without the unique requirements, the requirement would be 40 parking, but your unique requirements make this a fit in terms of the parking that's available. You indicate you're going to use only 10 parking spaces, 18 are available. I appreciate that staff put in a condition of approval that relates to parking impacts should they arise. But if you operate according to the conditions of approval, I can't imagine that ever happening. I also want to say that I appreciated Brandon coming forward and explaining not only how this business operates, but how this business has changed him. And, we always thank people for their service. And when you say at the beginning that you didn't feel like you were worth it strikes at the heart of me because I think you're worth everything. And that's right out of the gate. I had an experience a number of years ago walking through Arlington National Cemetery. It's quite a scenic place. And for the average tourist, that can be what strikes you about it. What struck me about it was the significant sacrifice represented by every one of those tombstones. And what was most overwhelming to me was to contrast that sacrifice with the insignificant contribution that I've made. And so I thank you for your service.
Commissioners, any other comments? Yes, the Commissioner Tuller?
Well, I was going to follow that with something way more mundane. I was going to bring it back to parking, but yeah, I on principle, I don't believe parking mandates, on-site parking mandates for private businesses are a good thing for cities. Just as a principle. That doesn't mean to say that we should be reckless and just disregard them and delete the provision in the code, especially when we're not actively making other ways of getting around more viable and more possible for more people. But in principle, I don't think those are good. So I don't really have a problem with this big deviation. The commenter over Zoom mentioned parking problems along the street, but when we don't manage street parking, when it's free for all, and it's free and it's general to the public, what do we expect? You know, I don't think that burden should be placed on businesses. I used to work at a planning counter, and I would spend most of the day saying no to people that wanted to start businesses. I said, nope, you don't have enough parking. You'd have to demo half the building. So I think about this building, and if these guys didn't have this really unique shuttle component to their project, what could go there? Man, nobody could get in there. A very narrow range of potential businesses would even be allowed, and the rest would just, the answer would be no, and they'd move on their way, they'd move on to a different city. I hope that we could think about our parking minimums and the effect they have on our business community, on entrepreneurship. I hope that we could be creative. I hope that we could think of other ways of making other ways of getting around more viable, of investing in making transit work as an alternative. But I think that this project, despite the fact that it has a big break on parking, the conditions are there. Staff's done a good job of making sure that that's going to work. So that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Russell, and then Commissioner Arith, I'll check in with you.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think this is a really good project for several reasons. One, there's clearly a need for the program, and I think the speakers have pointed that out. Secondly, that they were able to figure out how to get around some of the parking issues so that there won't be any impact on the community, and that we got letters of support regarding it from the local community was, I think, a real good thing. So often we don't get that. And we've had so many examples of programs that were not well run. It sounds like this one is extremely well run and provides a service that as a community we have to do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Arith, do you have any comments?
I have no comments at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. So I will gladly support the motion. I added in the condition on the expiration of the MCUP after 180 days of non-use, only because I don't know that anybody else who would want to come in and do the same thing that you're doing would do it as well as you are. So I want to make sure that if anybody else wants to do it, should you not stay there long term, hope you do, that they come back to us and have to kind of run the gauntlet again. So that's the only reason I added that in there. So Sergeant, you said something, I've had several members in my family who were in the military, including my nephew who just left the Army after service in Syria and South Korea, and he was a sergeant, a combat medic. We were all very proud of him. He saw some pretty bad things in Syria and patched up some really young kids who were sent in to fight against the Assad regime. And it stuck with him. But he was proud of what he did. And you said something in your comments about you came back and you were kind of ashamed and didn't have a lot of self-worth. You have nothing to be ashamed about relative to your service to this country and what you did. You should be proud of what you did. I'm proud of you for your service. I'm also proud of what you've done to heal yourself. And what you guys are doing over here, I think, is something we need in our community and we need a lot more of throughout the country, is to help our veterans who sacrificed a lot and came back hurting physically, emotionally. So I'm proud to say yes to this particular application and wish you all good luck. So with that, Julie, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Jericho?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hsip?
Aye.
Commissioner Arith?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Aye.
Commissioner Toller?
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and that decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Thank you. Good luck, gentlemen. Okay, and that takes care of public hearings for tonight. We don't have any old business items. We don't have any new business items. So we'll move to departmental reports and begin with public services. Mr. Yang, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, sir. Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the Planning Commission, good evening. I'll just start off with my report on a lighthearted note. The OC Fair, it's over. For some of us, we're elated. For some of us, we're disappointed, but I hope everyone had his or her fill of your 2-foot hot dogs and 3-foot turkey legs. So I guess that's the season over here. It's just almost a ritual here in Costa Mesa, but I guess we'll look forward to again next year. But other than that, we have the Fairview Road Hsip project. It's going on between Fairview Road, along Fairview Road between Baker and Adams. The traffic signal, the new traffic signal at Village Way has been already erected, and we plan on doing the street improvement sometime this week. So the grinding is going to start tonight, and the street pavement repair will be starting on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Something closer to home, at City Hall, the elevators will be repaired. We're starting the initial stages of it with bringing in material and equipment here at City Hall. So starting the next few months, at least one shaft of the elevators here at City Hall will be repaired. And after that's repaired, then the other shaft of the elevators will also be repaired. So we all can look forward here at City Hall and for the visitors here for new elevators come springtime next year. So that concludes my report, and I'll defer it back to the chairman.
Thank you, sir, very much. Development Services report, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I just want to give a brief update on the housing element as a continuation of my status update at our last meeting. We did release the public review draft housing element and post it online for public review and comment. Comments are due September 15th, and we will be having a community meeting on September 2nd via Zoom at 6 p.m. And all that meeting information is posted online at the city's website. We will also be organizing a joint Planning Commission and City Council study session also for September. I don't have the exact date yet, but as soon as I do, I will report it to this commission and post it online. That's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. City Attorney, Mr. Preziosi.
No report tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Just a reminder to the public that we do have 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. The city has posted notice for applications for those 2 positions. So please visit the city's website if you're interested. and apply if you're really, really interested. So with that, we'll stand in adjournment to our regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of Monday, September 13th, 2021. Good night.